This is one of many copies of Create This Book out there, but this is just not another Create This Book video. Hi, if you're new here, let me quickly update you. I'm Paula, I'm a full-time artist, and I started this channel and this book to recharge my creativity, find some joy, and hopefully inspire you to do the same thing. As you saw, I'm treating my book a little bit differently. It's almost like an experiment, so I can't wait to show you what I did with it on this episode. Here's the book, and I don't know why I was clapping at it just there. Maybe because I love it so much. Who knows? I can't remember. The first prompt is not the one pop-up that I just showed you, but create a sequel, because that's the page I made first this week. Sorry. And when I first read this prompt, I thought about all of the movies I love and what a part 2 of those would be. But then I thought, man, those are all comedies and I don't want to mess with perfection. So I started thinking about books. And I've read a lot of books, I've read a lot of series, and again, I was drawing a blank, complicated characters, plots, I don't know. And then I started thinking about children's books that I love. And I remember The Giving Tree, which to me is one of the most beautiful and most disappointing books I've ever read in my life. And if you're not familiar with The Giving Tree, it's a children's book written by Shel Silverstein. And there's this boy and a tree, and the tree loves the boy, and it gives him shadow and his fruit and company, whatever the boy needs. And as the boy grows up, it starts telling the tree that he's not happy, and the tree offers parts of himself to keep him happy and to help him through his life. He offers his branches so he can make stuff, his leaves, everything. At the end, the man, who's an old man now, tells him he wants a boat because he wants to leave because he's unhappy, and the tree offers himself. He offers his entire trunk for the man to build this boat. I think this is a really profound story and really sad. The ending is so sad to me. So for my sequel, or maybe this is just an extension of the ending, I decided that the old man finally finds something in his life that makes him happy instead of complaining, and he starts maybe to relate and spend time and enjoy his family, because at the end the book says he does have his own kids and everything. So he starts to enjoy his family and realizes he's only ever taken from the tree, and that it's now time to start giving. So he brings his granddaughter with him, and he starts planting flowers and making the space around the tree more beautiful and giving the tree love. And with all of these acts of love, the tree feels so motivated and happy again that he starts to grow back. And actually, I didn't know this, but trees can actually grow back from their cut stumps. It's amazing. I googled it, I started looking, and it's so beautiful that a whole tree can grow again from a tree that's been cut down. That just was wonderful for me to know. I love that. So I decided this is my story, and to illustrate it, I would do a simple pop-up with this kind of like final page. And I'm doing a pop-up because I found this really useful video that I'll link below, and it shows all of the basics of pop-up and how to do it simply without measuring or anything. So I thought, yeah, it's gonna be easy, and this is what I'm gonna do. So the first thing I drew was a copy of the stump of the tree from the end of the book, or I tried to copy as best as I could. And I also decided to draw the old man. And I was going to do the character of the old man on this same page or parallel, so it all pops up together. But then I thought it would be more interested if it kind of popped up separately on a different plane. So I brought some extra paper to draw the character of the old man, and I started that first drawing. And of course, once I got to the legs, I noticed I did not allow for enough space. So went back to the book with all of the pieces and measured exactly, or kind of exactly, how much space I did have for the old man without it having to stick out of the book when it folds. I drew my old man, and I drew him holding hands with his granddaughter, who is basically now the source of his newfound happiness and his new attitude, which I love. And I also wanted him to look happy and hold out like a gift for the tree. And at the beginning I thought it would be nice for him to have his hand open, showing him all of the seeds he was planting. But hands, I mean, whenever I draw hands or things that seem a little bit difficult or more technical is where my imposter syndrome comes in, and I really wish I went to art school and learned a lot of this stuff. In any case, I was satisfied with the drawing enough that I inked it, and it was then when I ran out of battery and I didn't notice I wasn't recording anymore. I'm sorry I keep doing these new YouTuber mistakes. And I'm sorry because I don't have the footage of me changing this hand. I got some references from the internet and I redrew it, and instead of showing the seeds, which, you know, the hand never looked right, I have the old man offering one of these flowers to the tree. So then I just cut out these two other characters, and it was time to put everything together inside the book. I still had to line my tree stump, which I did, and once I had everything in the book, I started to adjust my paper and cut it so everything would fit when I closed the book. I noticed there was a big part of the paper sticking out, so I had to kind of glue it and cut it out and glue it back again, and then it worked. And for the characters, I used a strip of paper to do the parallel, and the way I approached this was gluing it in place to see if it fit and move it around a little bit too because the hat was sticking out. You can see me trying. I even secure things with Scotch tape when I'm trying to figure all of this out, but I finally did, so glued everything in place and was happy with that. But that shape of the main page had this weird, almost like pyramid shape that I didn't like. So I decided to fix that by drawing some clouds that are nowhere in the original book, but would allow me to have a nicer outline. So I went over those with my marker, cut them out, and I was happier with that. I also was missing the last part, an important part of my new story. That's the part where I somehow expressed that the tree is feeling happy and that happiness makes him grow back. So I did a little plant thing with a speech bubble with a heart on it, and I don't know why I erased it after cutting instead of before, so I tore it. But that was an easy fix because I was gonna wrap it on packing tape anyhow to make it stronger. So I cut a slit on my tree stump and inserted that part, so when you pull it out you can see the tree glowing. I also printed out with a similar type to the one on the book a little bit of my story, and I finished up the page by adding some flowers, and that was it. And I know I should show you the final result now. Don't be mad at me. I'm gonna show it to you at the end of the video just because I was so eager to start the next prompt, and it was really hard for me to film this one from the top, and I had to move everything to show you. So I just went ahead on to the next one. As soon as I read that we were going to design a tree house, I knew I wanted my tree to pop up from the book somehow. What I first did was Google how to do it, and I found a tutorial online which I printed out, and it turned out to be so difficult, or at least it looked so difficult to me when I had it in my hands. Part 1, part 7, part 8, a lot of letters, fold, cut, slit. Oh my god. I couldn't understand it. So no. There had to be a simpler way, and of course there was. I found a tutorial video here on YouTube, which is easier, and I'm definitely gonna link below for you to see if you want to try this. And with this tutorial I finally understood how I could make this happen, so I started sketching my idea on my sketchbook. Having a tree house has been probably my lifelong dream, so I had all of these images in my head of what my tree house could look like. But at the end I settled for the idea of having one giant tree with different houses, almost like a neighborhood where magical things happen. When I finished my sketch, I recreated it on a loose piece of paper where I had measurements that were necessary according to the tutorial to make this work. So I drew my entire tree again, traced it, and then move it to the window so I can trace the outline and have both sides be exactly the same. I need the tree to be two parallels that cross for it to pop up. That's why the tree needs to be drawn on both sides. So I drew and I drew, and I did this process twice so I would have all of the parts of the tree. And when I was about to draw the final fourth part, I realized I had done all of my drawings wrong because I did them flat. And actually what happens is you need two sides of a tree to make a complete image, like in a V shape. I don't know if this makes sense, but I hope the images from my video explain it better than what I'm doing with my voiceovers. So to figure out which half of the tree went with the other half, I had to do this little diagram and mark it with letters. And then to correct my mistake, I drew a line in the middle of one of my drawings because I knew at this point I had to repeat two trees for sure. And I folded it in half, and with that half I figured out the pattern in which the tree drawings needed to go to complement each other with the corresponding half. It was confusing at first, but after using my diagram I had it. And I finally had my 4 drawings, which look kind of weird, but will look fine once I combine them together. And with that, it was finally time to start coloring, so let's have just a little coloring montage. My soul in the most wonderful way. The final step for each tree illustration was to do a thicker edge around so I could cut it without losing the black, and I also varnished them because I know once I have to color the tree on the other side, I could lose the color in the front. And after a lot of coloring, I finished my 4 trees, cut them out, and I was finally ready to put the whole thing together. I cut out all of the pieces from the tutorial in brown cardstock, and I'm not going to explain it to you because probably 1,000 of the views that tutorial has are from me. And it's not as difficult, but I don't know why. At the beginning, I couldn't get it. So just follow the instructions. But here's a really fast time lapse of me making this little mechanism, which is basically a grid that collapses on itself. And then you just add 2 pieces of cardboard to the grid, which I'm using my little pinky finger for adding the glue. That's something I learned in one of those videos, so you don't have everything sticking to everything. And this little paper mechanism is what's going to hold the tree up and make it collapse when you close the book. I also had to bring in my trees, and remember the measurements I made in the beginning? Well, this is where they come in handy. I had to draw a line right in the middle and cut through my trees. This was actually really scary because I was thinking, what if it doesn't work? What if I did this wrong? What if I'm not understanding this correctly and I just spent 2 whole days finishing these beautiful trees and now I'm cutting them and then they won't work. I've had projects fail before where I just mess up the putting together right at the end. But I decided to cut everything and put it all together. The first time I messed up because those thick lines I drew made my base like 3 millimeters wider than they needed to be, but I just trimmed it down a bit on the sides and was finally able to put my first part of the tree in. Then the second one, because I already knew how to do it, it was easy and it was time to put this whole thing in the book. Okay, oops, I forgot. I needed to cover the lines from past pages. So I just took out some acrylics to paint this really fast, like a grassy meadow, and once I was done, the paint could not dry fast enough. I just wanted to put the tree in there and see if it worked. So when it was finally dry, I went ahead and glued my tree in place. It's funny for me to share how nervous I was for this to actually work. This was such a passion project for me, so I really wanted it to work. So I closed my book, let it dry for a little while, very nervous still, and a little bit of the tree sticks out. I don't care. I opened up my book and it worked. This was like the best feeling ever. It worked. I was really happy. I did not care that anything was sticking out, and I was ready and pumped to do my third and final prompt. And yes, again, I'm going to show you the tree and how it looks around when I change my camera settings so you can see it pop up. Last and not least, it's create a contest. Okay, this last prompt, it doesn't seem like it in this video, but this almost broke me. I was sweating. The prompt asks to create a contest you know you would win. Well, to be honest, my imposter syndrome would never let me think about me winning a creativity or art contest. And that's a whole different talk for another day. But I think the two previous prompts definitely confirmed that I have an amazing chance to win a contest for overcomplicating things. So in that spirit, I am going to overcomplicate this page by creating a medal for first place using a paper mechanism again. Now, this idea came from a TikTok trend that became viral at some point. I don't know how long ago. It was a little pop-up book to the Mac Miller song, and of course I cannot play the song because it's copyrighted for sure, but I'm going to share the footage of the book here, and I love the circle part that moves, and I was like, I want to use that somehow. So now I had the perfect time to use this idea that I saved months ago. So again, I'm not going to try to explain how to make this. This is not a tutorial. This is you looking at me suffer through this, I guess. And I was super confused at first, and it took me so many tries to get everything together. I just basically cut everything and glued it like it showed in the tutorial, and then I had this paper mechanism that moves. And just to show you how complicated this was for my brain, as soon as I had the mechanism, I realized that I glued the parts on the other side, or maybe I didn't. Now that I'm looking at the footage, I'm not sure, but I had to do it all over again. So I took everything apart, glued it back together, and I had this mechanism again. It's supposed to work fine. And then I decorated the circles that were going to be part of my medal. And what I did for the two larger circles was colorful sections because I thought that was going to make the movement be more apparent. With all the pieces ready, I glued the mechanism to one of these cardboards that I was going to use to cover, again, everything that was bleeding through in my book. You have to know, and if you don't, go back and see all of my videos. At first, I was really winging it, so I didn't have a plan for my book. I guess I still don't. I'm just doing what makes me happy and experimenting with ideas, so I sometimes have to cover up mistakes from the past. Anyhow, I glued it in place, but it really didn't work, so I took it off and glued it back again. And I have to be honest, I don't know how many times I glued this on and off for it to work. I really lost track of everything I did, and not even looking back at the footage of making this medal, I understood what was happening with me. I don't understand what I was doing, but I was trying to make it work, and it was so frustrating. I cannot tell you how many times that day I just wanted to give up. I was sweating. It was a hot day. It was not good. It was really the epiphany of overcomplicating things and understanding that more complicated is not necessarily better. Anyhow, as I tried different ideas, one of the things I did was tape the two pieces of cardboard together to see if the mechanism would work in the book before committing to really gluing anything. And I also discovered at some point that one of the reasons my mechanism was not really moving like it should when it was glued down to a page was because I needed to reinforce the part that pulls the whole thing. So I did that, and it instantly worked better. And I decided to put everything into the book now. When I had all of the pieces in the book, I also decided to color the component that pulls everything to match the rest of the medal and the circles. And with my first attempt at gluing, both parts did not really work, and I finally realized I should not try to do it like the tutorial, but just in the way that it made sense to me. So I basically reversed that part and put some glue on it and pulled the mechanism, closed the book, and hope for the best. And guess what? That finally worked. Yay! I really did edit this down, so you cannot tell how long I spent on this, but I was so happy it worked. So I just finished up my page by adding some paper stars to make the movement even more apparent, reprinted the prompt on a label to stick it on, and I just drew the ribbon for the medal. I added what the contest was about, so first place for overcomplicating things. Hope you like it, and let's finally take a good look at this tree here. It is popping up. You see it really does go up, and you can see every side is playful, and you have the houses and places to rest or play. I really had fun drawing this, creating and imagining such tiny artworks, but I really enjoyed them so much. And for the Giving Tree page, here it is. Let me move this again. I need to change my angle. And here are the characters popping up. And you can see the tree feels the love. And when it does, the leaves come out like the ones I saw on the internet. The stump regrows. This makes me so happy. And with that, guys, we are done this week. This was a crazy Create This Book episode for me, so I really, really, really hope you liked it. It really took the whole of my week for me to complete this. I disappeared from work. So if you're still here, thank you so much. I can't wait to see what you think about it. I'm so grateful to have you here and to be able to share this with you. Don't forget, I have a whole playlist of my Create This Book pages you can watch, or check the suggested video next. I hope you are having the most wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Bye!